It's like a slight tweak on like something that you've experienced before.
What do you mean? When you're dating a fox god?
When I'm dating a fox god,
Do you know the Japanese word for fox god? Firupino.
What?
Why do you think she's with you?
It's me. I am Kami-sama Kiss.
We are Perfectly Mid. It's Emily.
Steve.
Karlo!
And today we're going to talk about shoujo. So if you have been living under a rock, you've probably heard the terms that shoujo, josei, shonen, and seinen. And they're basically the different types of demographics that either anime or manga are geared towards. And so you have the seinen and shonen genre, that's for the boys, and the josei, shoujo genre, just for the girls.
Why do you have 2 for boys and 2 for girls?
Well, one is for the younger generation. So what is it typically? Like what, 13
Shonen Jump
or
is like
younger?
younger even. Yeah, 13's probably a good cutoff.
Yeah, so shoujo and shonen are for like the young 13 and under, I'd say generally. And then I'll say the young adult is seinen and josei.
Theoretically. But it's 2024, damn it.
It's 2024.
We can't be constrained
you can
by
like whatever
labels.
you want. And as a shoujo girly myself, I don't discriminate.
Yeah, JJK is in Shonen Jump. I don't think that's for 13-year-olds.
I don't even think that's for adults.
Chainsaw Man was in Shonen Jump.
Really?
For a little bit, yeah. The part 1 was all in Shonen Jump. And then it moved over to Jump Plus.
Chainsaw Man.
So, you know, the labels are pretty
They're fluid.
pretty vague.
They're fluid. And I feel like it's definitely...
It's Japan. They wanted their this is for boys, this is for girls definition.
Yeah, they wanted Shoujo Beat and
You need a
Shonen Jump.
Shoujo Beat, great name.
Shoujo Beat. Mm-hmm. Kids on the beat.
So,
Kids on the street.
as your
Kids.
token shoujo representative, I know I've grown up loving shoujo and romance and all things girly and fluid. How about you guys? How about Karlo?
Shoujo, like in relation to shoujo.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know that there were different categories until like a couple years ago. I just thought it was all anime. But I mean, I'm your typical American boy. Grew up watching. I'll be right back.
Cat calamity in the closet.
I'm like, oh God, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, when we were kids, the terms didn't mean anything. But for me, at least, shoujo, not knowing it, but I watched some Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, if you know that one.
Mm-hmm.
Got to catch all the Clow cards. Probably some others besides that. But yeah, I understood, like, it was very clearly targeted for a female audience. But I don't, you know, I still enjoyed it. So I ended up watching it. I actually really cared about Cardcaptor Sakura.
Yeah?
Yeah, and then I got older and I read how the ending in the manga. I was like, I don't think I was emotionally ready for that as a child.
So I feel like a lot of boys and men specifically don't really give shoujo a chance. Why do you think that is?
I mean, the obvious reason, the same reason they don't with like Western stuff. I mean, if you think about like all the animated shows on like Saturday morning cartoons, it was, aside from like Pokemon and stuff that came over from Japan, it was like Jackie Chan Adventures and X-Men and Spider-Man, all those things. I don't, like, what is the girl equivalent in Western media for, like, cartoons that were targeted to girls? Totally Spies, I guess?
Yeah, Totally Spies.
But, like,
Kim Possible.
Kim Possible's great.
Brace Face.
You might notice a trend. I loved Totally Spies. I really, really loved Kim Possible. Incredible ending. I watched all 4 seasons. And that, like, ended when I was in college, but I still liked it. But yeah, I think it's the same idea of like, we're going to target these to boys and girls will play to sell toys and, you know, girls will play with dolls and they don't need a story behind it.
Yeah.
You guys missed the cats knocked over. Space is at a premium in New York apartments, and the cats knocked over a humidifier and a bunch of paintings, just all collapsed.
Okay.
Oh,
But
goodness.
a quick cleanup, nothing broken. I sort of caught what we were saying. The end of my sentence was, I watched your traditional like Dragon Ball Z and One Piece and Yu-Gi-Oh and all that when I was a kid. I didn't
Sailor
continue
Moon
with
or
One
anything
Piece.
like that?
Sailor Moon, yes.
Cardcaptor Sakura?
No.
Okay.
Voltus 5.
Well, I was trying to think of ones that like a lot of kids in Sailor Moon somehow like crossed that barrier where like just so many people watched it that a bunch of boys did.
I remember watching Sailor Moon at like before school, like 6 a.m. on Cartoon Network.
Yep.
It was like, da-na-na-na-na-na-na. That's how I would start my day. But I never really, like, they never played anything in order like when we were
Correct.
kids. So
Well, it's
it
like
was just
Pokemon,
sort of
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just whatever
Card
was
Captor
on.
was the same way because it's like it's episodic. You know,
Yeah.
who cares what card she catches? It just continues.
whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was
And
that
then
was,
you grow up and realize there's a storyline.
and then I wasn't interested.
What about you?
Yeah,
What
for
was
me.
your intro?
I mean, I feel like the first one that really sunk its teeth into me. I mean, Sailor Moon's the obvious, right? But then I think Fruits Basket was probably the next
The
one.
first
Really?
Shojo.
Yeah,
How
that,
old
like-
were you when you found
I mean,
Fruits Basket?
as a
Original
relative,
Fruits Basket?
No, not the
Okay.
2001 one. So like, I feel like everyone's introduction, or a lot of Westerners, their introduction to anime was like Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z,
Yep.
and then
When we didn't know what anime
Yeah.
was.
Right.
We're like, oh, this
And, like,
cartoon looks different.
it was like, okay,
why,
cool,
Why are they holding rice things and calling them donuts?
Why
Yeah.
am I attracted to this cartoon?
Yeah.
exactly. So like,
That's Squirrel
and then
Squad.
I was kind of fell off, I'll say, the anime train, right? And then
Yeah.
it wasn't until I think we talked about this in episode 1, but like it wasn't until then the pandemic that I
Yeah.
really.
You all know because you watched episode 1.
Yeah, go back to episode 1
It's
to hear,
canon.
hear all of our origin stories.
Yep.
Radioactive spider.
Exactly, that's Carlos.
I was a radioactive
Active
spider.
spider,
that
and he
turned
grew into a
human.
Filipino man.
Yes.
So then during the pandemic is when I kind of came back into the anime scene, and
Through
I just,
Shonen.
yeah, My
through
Hero.
MHA, yeah.
Well,
Was-
no spoiler. We want them to watch episode 1.
Oh, okay.
So, and then, but Fruits Basket, I think, was the one that I was like really avidly like binge watched, fell in love with.
And this was the remake.
Rewatch, and the remake. So
Do you remember? Sorry, I'm just curious. How Fruits Basket caught your attention? Was it just being on an app and seeing it?
yeah,
Or, okay.
that's exactly. So I feel like if I'm putting myself back into 2020 when we're all isolated and depressed.
Don't go too deep into that
Yeah,
memory.
right. It was My Hero, and then I think I watched Tokyo Ghoul next, and I didn't have Crunchyroll subscription at this time. I was either like stealing your username.
A lot of people,
Or-
a lot of people maybe potentially had access to my username.
Yeah,
Like 9
I was
people.
either
were
accessing.
sharing.
Yeah.
We were sharing is caring.
And eventually you got your own account, so Crunchyroll, I'm doing you a favor.
Exactly.
Also, you started as a pirate site. Sorry, it just.
And then, so I was watching everything on Hulu.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of like whatever anime was on Hulu and I feel like they just kind of like push I don't know how their algorithm works.
They had
but-
just started
Yeah.
putting anime on Hulu.
So it
during
was
the
like
pandemic,
Kami-sama Kiss, Fruits Basket, Nana,
yeah.
and
High School DxD. I'm kidding.
I don't think that's on Hulu, but so I don't know. Fruits Basket just kind of caught my attention as like the next natural progression. As like after I finished watching like Tokyo Ghoul, it was like, oh, well, the next like highest rated suggested for you. So gave it a try, and
So Hulu's like, this particular viewer is female. Let's start pushing them towards the
it
Shojo
could
Josei
be.
stuff.
It could be. Yeah. So that was really the one where I was like, oh my god, I fell in love with this because it's. I don't know. For me, the shoujo genre and all, like it's not that it's your feel good time. So like, day jobs are very stressful. Yeah, your mind is racing a mile a minute. It feels nice to just turn things off. And I know people may come for me on how Fruits Basket is trauma filled.
I was gonna say I didn't have quite the same feeling, but
But first 3 episodes, you're like, oh, they're cute little animals and they're having fun and they're playing house, and then you just kind of like then naturally get sucked into it. So like that escapism slice of life, like it's not too serious, not everything's a battle, like was what really kind of intrigued me. How about you, Carlo?
About Fruits Basket?
No, just well, we'll go to Fruits Basket, but like, have you watched
as an adult
shoujo
now,
as
that
an
you know
adult?
it is.
I watch shoujo because you watch shoujo. There are some shoujos that are good, and I really like romance as a genre in general, especially for live action, and in movies. Love romantic movies, but for some reason shoujo just hasn't hit for me the same way it's hit for you or for Steve. I think for me, it's because a lot of the relationships, and it's in the categorization, right? It's for a younger audience, so a lot of the romance for me can be a little bit obvious or hits on tropes that I'm like, will they, won't they? Which
You're
not
talking
for
about
me.
more the shoujo era, or not era, but like the shoujo type of like, is he looking at me? Will we hold hands in 20 volumes? Kind of like the light romance stuff.
That's part of it. That's like,
because I was gonna say there's the obviously more adult.
Yeah, there's
end
the
of
more
it.
adult ones, but I think the exploration for me, the characterization of some of the romances that happen. I haven't seen a series yet where I enjoy it. I think it's also because when you have a series, you do have to stretch it out for the length of the series, which for me can be tedious, which is why I really enjoy it in movies. Like Shinkai films, I love because it explores romance, it explores those people, and it does it at a fast enough pace to keep you engaged.
Okay.
So you're not a slow burn guy.
I'm not a slow burn person. I'm also the type of person that if an anime or if a show is more than like 2 seasons, it better have had an idea of what it wanted to be for more than those 2 seasons rather than a 7 Deadly Sins where I'm writing it and now I have to continue writing it because somebody said so. But I do acknowledge that I think shoujo has a very strong audience. It's continuing to gain steam. And I think the more shows that come out, the more modern ones I'm starting to get a little more clued into. Like True Beauty, I really, really like.
Okay.
Kaguya-sama
Love
Love is War.
Yeah.
Like if we would, I don't know if we count that as a shonen or a
Well,
shoujo.
I was going to eventually say that there's a difference between Shojo Josei, which is who it's targeted for, and romance as a genre.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
Dandadan's a romance, but it runs
Yeah.
in Shonen Jump Plus. You know?
So, well, are we talking about romance
well,
or?
I was gonna say
back when we were kids, there wasn't really much romance in shonen shows.
Yeah, it was very like.
Let me rephrase that. I'm sure it existed.
Black and white.
What we were getting in the West did not cover romances.
Yeah.
The romance would be like you're watching a Gundam series, and there might be like an ill-fated romance where one of the characters is going to die at the end. But like it's not really exploring a romance. It's
Yeah.
like the veneer of a romance.
Yeah.
I think
and I think it's evolved.
Yeah,
right?
I think as it's evolved, and I think as I've gotten,
we've gotten more access to those.
as we've gotten more access, as I've gotten more exposed to the shoujo or the romance that's
yeah,
out
we
there.
can do a slash.
Yeah, slash.
Yeah.
I think I've started to appreciate it and like it more. Specifically, the more modern ones, I'm more geared towards. I think they explore themes that are a little more nuanced and more evolved than some older stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I like it more.
Yeah, that's
now.
that conversation about Heisei Showa versus Reiwa era.
Yeah.
Like it's a joke, but like it does kind of fit with like the medium's progressing and people are getting more creative in romance, which is why you can have a series like Dandadan, which is theoretically targeted more towards boys, but it's like a romance that is in a boys magazine that girls can also enjoy, and it's a real romance.
Yeah.
So like, what are some things then? You say a lot of the tropes and all of that like really were not for you.
Yeah, it was like the will they, won't they. It's the I like her. I don't know if she'll like me back. I don't want to say it.
She made me special chocolates for Valentine's Day, but like, does it mean anything?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
Is it friendship chocolate?
Oh no, we couldn't hear each other over the fireworks.
Yeah, well, a lot of stuff in Kaguya-sama, but they play it for
Yeah, the
for
trope
humor.
exists so that they could then bounce off of it.
Basically, every trope that's in Kaguya-sama that they
Being
do
made fun of.
ironically being made fun of, that they parody, that's what I don't necessarily enjoy about old Showa. Now, Fruits Basket.
Yeah. So I've made both of you guys watch it.
Yeah.
I want to hear now that you've watched it, absorbed it, heard me talk about it endlessly.
The first season is rough. The first season, it took me 3 tries of watching the show, and you love it, so I just kept on trying to watch it. It took until the third try for me to get past the first season, and I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed season 2 and season 3. There are characters that I love. There are characters that I hate. Akito's a murderer, and I don't know why anybody gives them the time of day. I really, really liked Shigure in the beginning, and by the end, I'm like, what?
That's the older gray-haired one?
No, he's the dog.
Yeah. So the older gray hair.
Yeah.
Oh, is he gray hair?
He has like gray hair.
Grayish hair. He's the older, like, author one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the exact
When
same
you-
feeling. Spoilers. My 2 least favorite characters are him and Akito.
I love
At the end.
Yeah, at the end. I love Shigure in the beginning.
Because I didn't know anything about him, yes.
And I like it. It makes me like the show even more now. Like, how did you make a character that I absolutely adored somehow become like the villain?
Yeah.
But in a way that wasn't like, what the fuck? It was
Yeah.
like, oh.
Yeah, and not the villain like you killed someone. The villain like, oh, you're making awful decisions because you've just decided
just
you don't.
a selfish
Everybody
human
else that
being.
you care about doesn't matter actually.
Except for Akito, who is a murderer.
Right. Yes.
Attempted murderer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what was the question? I'm sorry.
No, it's just a reaction.
The question was say something
like,
nice about Fruits Basket.
Yeah. No.
I didn't like it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I forced myself to get through it. And I like it.
So then, where do you think was the turn? So I'll say first 2 tries. What made you drop it?
it was just slow. It was a lot of like character introductions. And I was like introduced to Momoji like 20 times, and I'm like, I get it. But after all the characters were introduced and it started getting into the story and the characters interacting with other characters, which starts at the end of season 1, beginning of season 2, that's when the things start rolling. Because I just felt like nothing was happening besides like, oh, here's a new Zodiac member.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, I ended up watching it through because I knew so many people that I followed that liked it. I was like, I'll get around to it eventually, and we got talking to it. I was like, okay, I'm finally going to sit down and watch it. I was like, I'm watching this all the way through. And I made it through season 1, but I did kind of have that feeling of like, oh, you keep introducing character, like aside from the trio at the beginning, like the little boy is really mean to her, and then you introduce this like blonde kid who like kind of just sucks, and then like everybody you're getting introduced to is just kind of like mean or awful, and I'm like, am I meant to care about these people? And then at the end of the series, it like basically flips, and it's like, hey, the one you liked sucks, and all these other people like end up being more interesting. I admittedly like Toru is nice and Kyo and Yuki, but like I would say none of them rank as close to my favorite characters at the end. I was more into like the secondary characters and wanted to see more of them. So yeah, I kind of felt the same way where I was like, there's some just truly awful people in this series, which, you know, shows can have that. But I was like, can we stop spending time with Akito? Because like Akito sucks and I'd like them to leave.
Yes.
And that made season 3 hard for me to watch just in the sense of I'm like, you don't have to forgive everyone. Like criminals could be punished for their crimes.
Yeah.
I will say I agree with you on that.
Toru's like too nice. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is the and again, I like the series and everybody should watch Fruits Basket, but like it reminds me of the era it came from. And part of the reason I think I struggled, but like not struggled, but had challenges watching is I'm like, I've seen these tropes and I don't like seeing them all together. I like shows now that like parody them or like use one but move past it because we're like, oh, our people are going to behave like people.
Yeah.
And she's overly nice to the problematic degree, the same way that like sometimes shonen like main characters are like power of love and friendship, never hurt anyone. It's like, no, some people are bad.
Yeah.
Like there's a prison system, you could use that. So
it does do a lot of
but like I could remember, I'm like, okay, at the time this came out though, this, you know, I would not have been as critical of this because it wasn't as overdone.
Yeah.
I would say it's, even though it is a product of its time, I don't think it's dated.
It's not as dated.
Yeah, I think it holds up pretty well.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, why do you think more people haven't watched it?
It's not
specifically.
Pushed. There's no merchandise for it really. Like the merchandise for it is going to be at cons or on Etsy.
Or fan
I will
art.
say
Or
it
fan
did
art,
it did
yeah.
well when it came out. I think the 3rd season was up for Crunchyroll Anime of the Year. Maybe it was the 2nd season, but either way, like within anime spheres, it actually got like more attention than a typical shonen or Shojo Josei series gets. They're almost never nominated.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. Actually, thinking about the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, that was even in contention for something that wasn't the romance category.
And I think that's a not just for Fruits Basket alone.
Yeah.
For most shoujo, I think it's just not pushed hard enough, so people don't know it's there.
And Fruits Basket lucked out with an incredible reimagining. Like
have the
the
reboot.
animation
Yeah.
quality,
Fruits Basket
the VAs, the music. It was incredibly well done, and I think that's the one that a lot of people started pointing to. Like maybe we could start getting some remakes of other things. Like that kind of started the trend of now we're getting Ranma 1/2 and Urusei Yatsura and others. I'm struggling to think of
Spice and Wolf, yeah.
Spice and Wolf. I'm struggling
Soul
to think
Eater.
of what before.
That's my
I think Fruits Basket might have been the one that proved that they should be doing this.
Why?
Which is insane.
Why did they decide to do that for Fruits Basket? Was it just so popular? Like,
Well, I think
in manga.
the 2001 came out, which I tried to watch it and I just can't.
What for? What reason?
It just
Because she has a better one she could watch.
yeah. Well, I think that's
it's hard sometimes to go back to an old version.
back.
when
Like the art style is rough.
That's your big thing, art
Yeah,
style, right?
the art style is rough.
Yeah.
The voice. I mean,
The
it's the
voice
same
acting is
voice
2001,
actors,
yeah.
but it's like the voice acting is very
it's not the same quality.
It's dated.
2001.
There's better technology they were using to
Their
do it now.
technology. I mean, and I think quite frankly,
Did they
like
finish the story? Sorry.
no, they didn't
So
even
that's-
get.
In the first
That
one,
might be
yeah.
part of the
Yeah,
reason.
2001. They just got to like maybe the end of season 1 currently, like how the current adaptation is. But I think I'm not sure how the genesis of it. I'd have to look into it. But I think it's a well-known fact that like the mangaka was like not pleased with the adaptation.
And also, I believe Fruits Basket, prior to the remake, I'm not positive of this, but my understanding is Fruits Basket was insanely popular in Japan. Like it was one of the held up pillars of like this is a great
So
shoujo.
it was easy to advocate
I think
it as like a
in the
let's
same
get
way
it
that like a
done.
lot of Japan's decisions on what to animate is just based off of what's popular in Japan. Fruits Basket I think was big anyways. Like I'm sure there were collab cafes happening before the remake.
I have a question about Fruits Basket because you read the manga. Like I'll parallel it to shonen, right? Like I think the value you get out of anime with shonen is being able to animate all of the crazy fight scenes.
Yeah.
Do you think that Fruits Basket is elevated by being an anime rather than a manga?
I think so because it gives you like the feel, like the musical soundtrack feels. You know, like what do they say in a scary movie? Like don't cover your eyes, cover your ears.
Yeah, because that's what
right,
gives you
because
the
that's
emotion.
what gives you the emotion. Like I feel like shoujo really benefits from the like orchestral backgrounds and like the build up and
like the pacing being
Yeah.
able to pace
Weird
the right way.
comparison, but a number of fanfic writers when they'll share like especially in like big moments in their story when tying back to my fanfic conversation,
Yeah.
I mainly read fanfic for romance. A lot of them will like in the big confession moment, like they'll be like, "Here's the music I was listening to when I wrote this."
Oh, so it's
Yeah.
like
or
listen
like
along.
here's a suggestion of like what might fit this. Not everybody does it, but like
Yeah.
the trend of that happens to be in romance fanfic, at least from what I've seen.
Like the scene where Toru pulls the bracelet off.
Yeah,
of
they might literally
Kyo's
recommend
wrist.
like
She's
here's a
listen,
song
listen
from
to
Fruits
Not
Basket
Like
or
Us.
something. Yeah.
Li-
Yes.
Sure.
Listen
Yes.
to Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo by
Yes.
the Bloodhound Gang.
oh my god.
While you're reading a lemon scene.
Yeah, well you're reading, you know, I don't know. No spoilers.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Akito's a murderer. Spoiler.
I'll probably have to put up a spoiler way before this. I think we disparaged Akito in the first minute.
yeah, right.
You should.
But I mean, seeing the progression, right? I think we can all agree, like the beginning, early 2000s, shoujos were quite rough. It was
Yeah.
the art style was everything like the Clan Ed style. No hate to Clan Ed, but like
Yeah.
the big eyes, the doughy
Yeah.
personalities.
All the manga, not all the manga. This is generalizing, but had that bubbly light art
Sparkle,
style.
sparkle, sparkle.
Yes, and
Pastel colors.
yes, a lot of
Yeah.
pastels, which like is nice, but you can overfill on anything.
Yeah.
So which I can see why, like growing up, like not a lot of boys wanted to watch it because it was like too girly.
It was
and-
literally
Yeah.
we're designing this for girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. But have you seen, so now, like, growing up with it and seeing the progression, how have you seen it kind of change, and is it more socially acceptable to admit that you enjoy romance?
Well,
You
okay,
say it
I was
and then
going to say
I'll go.
romance, because I was going to say, not that romance didn't exist in shonen, I haven't read enough old shonen, or what's categorized as shonen seinen to say this. I'm sure there was romance in it, but it feels like more series that are written in that boys category are comfortable putting in romance that feels realistic. So Kaguya-sama Love is War, I don't think anybody was making a romance like that back in like the 80s, 90s. To be fair, it was a newer medium. I reference Dandadan a lot because it is, I would argue at its core, a romance and then maybe an action supernatural, but like the romance is pretty key to it. Even Dangers in My Heart, which I really, really love.
That one I feel like took me a while to start to watching because I couldn't get over the middle schooler part.
Correct.
What's the middle schooler part?
So both the characters in it are middle schoolers, but and they're like real Japanese middle schoolers. So like, it's not like, oh, I mean, in the same way that like, oh, first love, like, okay, holding hands is important, but like they don't shy away from the fact that like the main character is a 14-year-old boy and like thinks about sex, and like the girl is like growing up.
Like
into
they're
her
going
body.
through puberty.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's realistic.
It's realistic.
It's not like Tokyo Revengers where they're
but
14
like,
and they
but the
killed
kid's
people.
also a chunibyo, so like
He's
like,
a what?
Chunibyo is like it's called 8th grader syndrome, which is weird because they're in middle school. But it's like oh, I have like a dark power in my eye. Like I have to seal the thing.
Like an edgelord.
What's his name? The
Tokuyami.
Tokuyami. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that's exactly what it is. And so it's a little rough to read the beginning of the series, especially because the art is rough and he's like that. But it's a defense mechanism. And you get past that and you're like, oh no, he's like. He doesn't like who he is, and he wants to get better. It's not just the series where like the main character is bland and never changes because like girls are just tripping and falling over him. And the girl's like really attractive, but she's like a bit of a ditz and likes to eat, and like she's uncomfortable because people are just nice to her because she's pretty, and like they find goofy things to connect over, and like when they have disagreements or misunderstandings, it gets resolved because why would they not resolve it? It's not, I'm going to throw a rental girlfriend under the bus where it belongs. Like, it just drags for 400 chapters.
I always get rental and domestic mixed up, which is the bad one.
I mean, they're both
Well,
bad, but
depends.
domestic is bad in a hilarious way. I did read all of it. It's trash.
Which is the offensive one? Domestic?
Offensive. Domestic is probably like offensive, but
Yeah.
I read it because it was entertaining. I hate rental girlfriend because it just doesn't it doesn't progress. Domestic girlfriend progresses in the weirdest possible ways. Like pick every soap opera you've ever seen, and like it's going past that.
Okay, one of them is the one with the teacher.
That's domestic
Okay,
girlfriend.
okay, got it.
All right.
Okay,
sorry.
sorry.
I cut you
Anyway,
off.
my point being that like we're starting to see romance branch more across and not just have to sit in shoujo in that bubbly pastel style. And also in Shojo and Josei, they're getting more creative in the types of stories that they're telling and expanding on the art style. So I think romance has just, like everything else in manga and anime, it's evolved and adapted. And like, oh, we can tell romance in different ways. And on the middle schooler aspect, I have to look up the name. I think the best romance series that came out maybe 3 years ago was about two kids in middle school.
Yeah?
And it was like a first love, but they're like really realistic about it. It's the same thing. Like they'll have some misunderstandings, but like they'll immediately resolve it because they're like, I like you and I want to figure things out. And it got like a lot of attention. It's about like two like 12 or 13-year-olds just like falling into first love.
I have a hard time determining whether it's changed that much or if we've just changed. Like
It's
obviously
definitely some of that.
Obviously the medium's changed, but like the question about is it more acceptable now to like it as a boy? I think it's more acceptable mostly because I'm not a boy anymore. Like I'm a full-grown adult. I'm a man, and I can say whatever I want, and I can own it, and I'm not ashamed to say that I like that stuff. I don't know if it's changed for 14-year-olds, but I do think. I mean, even for teens, I think now it's like it's cool to like what you like. People don't bully people for being more feminine or more masculine, or rather, they don't bully as much as they used to as when we were kids. So maybe that has part to do with it. But I agree, and I said it before. I think the medium has evolved with the times to tell more complex stories and to entertain more things and not rely on tropes all the time.
I do want to add one other thing, which is, there's still, I think if you're a young boy, you're probably reading One Piece, which basically has no romance, and JJK and My Hero Academia, like those things in Shonen Jump. But there's other series in Shonen Jump now, and they have come and gone in the publication before. But you've got Blue Box, which is one of the best romance series out. You've got Witch Watch, which is comedic, episodic, but it's the creator of Scat Dance, and it is ultimately about this boy and this girl who are in love with each other, like slowly trying to figure that out. It drags a bit, but it's more of a comedy. And I think there's one other, there's another series in it. Hima 10 is a romance, and the creator of, was it Boku Yaba? No, not Boku Yaba. We Never Learn was a romance manga. It was one of those like a bunch of girls like the main character, but it was mostly funny. That author's back now with a new one about like a detective in like England, and like his assistant who dresses as a boy. He's like the greatest detective. He can notice anything, picks up on clues accidentally, can't enjoy his life because he always stumbles into mysteries. Hasn't realized that his assistant is not a boy, but a girl who's like really into him. And the
There's a lot
spoilers
of
for chapter 1. And
The like cross-dress,
and the
stuff.
cop he's always butting heads against was actually his childhood friend. He's like, well, I'm never going to see her again. And she is like waiting to find this boy that she remembers, except his name is still the same, and she's like missing a letter, and she just doesn't get that it's him. And so there's like a lot more romance in Shonen Jump now. Like there's 4 romance series running.
Missing a letter.
Like his name is
It's like-
Sid, but like I think he had like she knew his full name and hasn't figured out that like Sid is clearly short for like Sydney or whatever. It's like it's literally that.
Nick
Wait,
and Nicholas.
are you telling me Steve is Steven?
It's that. It's literally the point is like they're dum-dums about this one thing. But like,
That's great.
There's a bunch of romance series in Shonen Jump right now, and that's probably like the single biggest indicator. I can't think of another time Shonen Jump has had this much romance in it.
Well, speaking of then, I have a term that I like to use called like shonen boner, like or Shone-bone, where it's like people
I
just
don't like that when
love,
you say it.
Like name your top 5 anime, and it's
Oh.
like the most generic, like
Shonen.
One Piece, Bleach, Dragon Ball Z, Jujutsu
Naruto is the
Kaisen,
greatest.
Naruto, and I'm like,
SpongeBob.
it's just such a show. Like to me, that's like you just have a Shone-bone,
Yeah.
and you have given nothing else a chance. Because if you
Yes.
just think of like regular like live action movies, you can't tell me that all 5 of those are like a Michael Bay movie.
I would say if you do that like 7-8 years ago, people would list a bunch of Marvel shit and like Mission Impossible
Fair.
and stuff. I think one factor, not the only factor, because some of it is what you're talking about, but one factor is those shows get the biggest budgets, and in anime that really shows.
Yeah, and I think
there's a limitation to what you can do with a small budget on an anime.
And I think Western audiences too, you're gonna get what's most popular in Japan because that's what they'll spend money to translate, which is why like 5-10 years ago that's what you would
like
get.
think of Everything Everywhere All at Once was like made with a low budget, or like the minus Godzilla minus one was made with a super low budget. If you can't apply that same method to anime because you're just going to be incredibly limited in what comes out.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
So what about the Shone-bone?
No, it's just not even giving things to people, not even giving it a chance.
You ask a majority of anime fans, just in general, like the world of people who watch anime, they're going to list the big shonen series. Because those run for like 6 seasons, you can just put it on and not turn your brain off, but like kind of turn your brain off depending on the show.
I think it would be interesting.
And it's just cool action, like
during the next con, if we just like went around and just surveyed people, like name your top 5 anime, and just like had people self-identify like male or female, and like just see what the split is.
Well,
if how many
I would
people
also
name
then love to like
shoujo.
I feel like so many of those people, generalization, right? But a lot of that population.
You're gonna get people like me who are like, it's Monogatari and it's March comes in like a lion.
Oh, I wasn't even gonna say that. I was gonna see like not even like given romance a true chance.
Correct.
Like my Crunchyroll watch list is just like
you'll get one of two people. It's the people who are there for JJK, and then you'll get. This is overgeneralization, but like then you'll get the people like me who I'm like, I've seen 1,000. I'm gonna name some artsy shit, and maybe some romance will work in there. But that's because like you've moved past and started watching. You'll get more of those at a con, but the bulk of them are gonna be what you're saying. They've like watched 20 series and they really like their shonen stuff, and that's what they're at the con for.
But I'd want to see how many like you said have at least one.
The question is how many girls. Because I imagine most of them would fall in the romance, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bunch of them who are like, you know, I watch MHA and JJK and I'm into the BL element of that, but like I haven't branched into the true romance.
Yeah, I mean that's where you started, right?
Yeah.
Like where you restarted.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's part of the reason BL is so popular, is just because, you know, you weren't getting as much anime of actual romance series or series
so you
targeted
just
towards
had
girls.
You had
so
to make your own.
Yeah, it's because the opposite.
Choose your own adventure.
Everything on what app?
It's not shoujo ai. Yeah. I don't know if there's an equivalent term of boys love for like girls love. So shoujo ai and Yuri, but like. Is there like GL? I don't know. But like,
I mean, I think it's like GL.
I don't
or
think
Yuri,
that's Yuri and yaoi is the gay equivalent.
Yuri on Ice.
But I don't think that's not nearly as popular, and I don't, you know, maybe it's because guys always just got like their straight heterosexual relationships. If there was going to be a relationship in manga, it was typically going to be that. Girls weren't getting those major series focusing on like a nice romance that you would look up to or want to be in. So it kind of, this is speculating, you know, let's start pairing the boys together and pretending they're not so muscle-headed and just focus on punching everything, or like can actually be emotional with each other.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like, let's take the muscle party out of the mix and just make them more vulnerable.
Yeah.
At the risk of sounding controversial, I'm thinking about some of the best, or not the best, but the highest grossing movies in America, and most of them are action flicks, right? Like
it used to not
Avengers
be. I mean,
Endgame.
Titanic was
I
up
was
there,
just about to say Titanic.
But Titanic has that big disaster.
But that was also a long time ago. If you look at, take out anything from like before 2000, and it's probably all action films.
Yeah. So it's like, maybe just action, which shonen relies on more. Maybe it just has broader appeal than romance in general.
Picture an animated fight scene from any shonen series, and then picture like the fireworks kiss scene from like Kaguya-sama as an example. Also great, but like if you're just gonna turn in and like try to watch something for fun, like show me some fist flying. Like that really showcases the power of animation versus that fireworks scene, which is gorgeous, is more about framing and color use and sound.
I also think there's an element of escapism, right? Like with romance, because it's so human-sized.
So slice of lifey,
like the drama that you experience, yes, it's going to be heavy, it's going to be affecting, but it's going to be something that's within the realm of like
reality.
A person being able to experience, where like how many people are going to go through World War II? How many people are going to go through the Titanic sinking? So like you watch those things and you're like, fantasize. There's a fantasy to it, whereas like romance it's like a very specific fantasy. It's like
What do you
let me.
But for girls, they
Let me
can
take-
fantasize about being with a nice guy instead of their boyfriend who's just reading JJK.
Well,
And he's
no.
like, look at these punches.
when I say
Verbal.
when I say specific fantasy, I mean like it's like
Yeah.
a slight tweak on like something that you've experienced before.
What do you mean? When you're dating a fox god?
When I'm dating a fox god and yeah, or when I'm dating somebody who turns into a cat. A demon.
Do you know the Japanese word for fox god? Firupino.
What?
Why do you think she's
me.
with you?
It's me. I am Kami-sama Kid.
Oh my god. All right. So, I mean, I think we can all safely say we have a very well-versed and well-rounded anime.
Somewhat.
Repertoire.
You guys more than I do.
And there's
Yes,
some
but we've
stuff
made you watch things.
Yeah, you've made me.
But I
watch
mean, even
things.
then, like you're consuming a lot in the romance space that I'm not, and I've gotten recommendations from you in that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah,
and
fair.
like I don't touch horror. Like it's such a wide
Range.
medium, really.
Yeah.
So like there's so much out there that I'm not touching.
Yeah, anime is a medium, not a genre.
Yeah. Or even like you picture Sign of Affection and A Silent Voice, which is coming back into theaters next week, I think. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see it. You've got series more now, and I guess it was happening, but like that are getting mainstream appeal about people with handicaps.
Yes, disabilities.
Yeah, and that's just like one tiny little area where it's like, hey, people are starting to not just write kind of in the same way that television used to be like, oh, there's a deaf person, they're like super poorly portrayed, and now they're thinking about like, how do we actually
Very offensively portrayed.
right? And now they're like, hey, no, let's like talk to someone and figure out how to properly write this character. And,
Or like
Yeah.
anyone
and
with
manga
autism.
are, you know, now we've got series that are like,
I'm
you
a
know, in
doctor.
Sign of Affection, they found somebody who the two mangaka, the women who write and draw it, found somebody who speaks Japanese sign language, and there's two different types, and they like talk to her and like consult with them to like understand how to properly draw that and represent it, and you can feel it in the way that's done
Yeah.
it.
It's interesting. Like I think about Stan Lee and like Marvel, and I guess because the U.S. you're forced to deal with diversity in a different way than in Japan.
Yep.
That like we Americans pushed for that representation much sooner. Like you had Daredevil, who was blind. Like you had black characters. You had like Superman, who was a stand-in for a Jewish man. Like you had that very early in comics.
Yeah.
Whereas like in Japan, it's sort of like it's happening now, which is
I
interesting.
do want to caveat that with it's happening more
Mainstream
often
now,
now
yeah,
because like so as an example, this is less about well, I guess it's a little bit about diversity, but it's like a challenging topic. There's Osamu Tezuka, who's the grandfather of anime. He's basically the one who started it all. And one of the series he wrote is
Sorry, just give me a quick history lesson. Like what year was it?
Kimba
Like-
the White Lion. He did
Oh, okay.
Tetsujin. Why am I forgetting?
So is this like 60s, 70s, 80s?
60s.
60s.
60s. Why am I forgetting what the English name of Tetsujin is? Astro Boy.
Astro Boy. Okay.
Yeah. So that guy did a series called Message to Adolf. And it's about, it's a World War II story about a German boy who like grew up in Japan with like a Japanese friend, and then there's a Jewish Adolf. Like there's the three of them, and it's the story told from like their perspective and capturing this. And this was like back in the,
That's
I
awesome.
think maybe he put it out in the 70s.
Yeah.
So like those stories exist. They just,
Yeah.
there weren't a lot of
They
them.
didn't have the
and certainly like
popularity
I own the
and
books, but like
Or even the distribution.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, there less stuff was being produced, and you know, he could do what he wanted because he's Tezuka. But
Yeah.
a lot of other people, in the same way that all we get is isekai now, because like that sells. So you know, it's
That and Suicide Squad. Perfect marriage.
right, exactly. Oh God. So anyway, like I think there's just more of an appetite now and more of a way to get what you're making out to people.
Yeah.
You don't just have to get it published. Like there's manga that only exists on Twitter. And some of them then get really big and get picked up for serialization or just get released. I've read some really good series, some of my favorites in the past couple of years that like started as Twitter series.
Yeah, and I think it helps too. Where instead of getting like 10 to 15 animes per season, there's like over 30.
Now there's
which
too many.
now maybe oversaturation.
Yes. But sometimes they're surprising ones.
But yeah, some sleepers.
Yeah. And so hopefully as part of that, I think we are seeing more romance anime get made. And some of them are doing well, and then we're seeing like, oh, My Happy Marriage is going to get a season 2.
Finally getting seasons 2 of Shojo, which
yeah,
I feel like
which is rare. I don't know what else besides Fruits Basket that's like, I'll say a shoujo romance, because I guess there's like
I mean, yeah.
Sailor Moon, which was huge in Cardcaptor, but like it doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
What does quintessential quintuplets count as?
That's for boys.
Yeah.
It's
That's for
a
boys.
harem. It's a
That's
harem around one boy. Yeah.
And then the 100 girlfriends. Most harems are for boys. Are there harems that
There
are
are
marketed as
reverse.
shoujos?
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
it's
like
literally
Brothers
it's
Conflict.
literally
No, but not
it's
reverse.
It's tagged reverse harem.
Not
which
reverse
is crazy.
harems. Not like where it's
Oh,
a
you
lot
mean
of
where
boys.
it's a bunch of girls, but
it's a bunch of girls, but like it's 4 girls. Like, does that exist?
So I would actually say that while it starts a little like seems like it's going to be very shoujo shonen like for boys, 100 Girlfriends is actually way more of like a comedy and like all the girls are friends and he's just like the ideal perfect boyfriend who's like not really interested in like anything perverse with them at all and prevents it, and it's just like these girls are all ridiculous together and like they're all super friends, and half the chapters are just the girls going out and hanging out with each other.
So it's the later part of Konosuba.
Yeah. Konosuba is an interesting one too, because like you really enjoy. I mean, I would still say that's very clearly targeted for boys,
Yeah.
but it's not as egregious, even though it is.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of girls who really, or I've run into a lot of girls who are like, I really like Konosuba, which like.
The characters have agency.
Yeah.
And they're very different, and it's just like funny. It doesn't rely on like the fan servicey typical like.
Yeah, it's
humor.
there. It's there, but like.
I mean,
a lot of it,
darkness is dark. That's part of darkness's character.
right, but most of the humor is them
Yeah.
being horribly embarrassed by their character flaws.
exactly
Yes,
like
yeah.
just them being the worst, Kazuma included.
Right,
Like,
and the only real relationship is Kazuma and Megumin, anyways. Like the other two, Aqua and
Oh, no.
and Darkness are not like really. Well, Aqua's useless. Nobody likes her, but like Darkness just has a kink.
Yeah,
she's
like
not really
Darkness is
romantically
Darkness.
interested. She's just a kink.
I just don't understand the obsession with Megumin.
no.
Well, you're wrong.
I don't get it. It's lost on me. Like it's one of those where like
She's adorable. She has one thing she loves, and she goes for it.
I just literally feel like I'm missing something.
The two of them are so funny together. Her little sister is nuts.
I just don't get it.
The mom is crazy.
I've watched it all, and I like every time I'm just like cool that people like her, and cool that people like ship them, and obviously like it's she got her own like movie. Was it a movie?
TV
That's a
show.
season.
It's a
Like,
spin-off. It's
yeah,
like,
she got her
all
own-
those light novels now get spin-offs. That was a spin-off.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna.
I didn't get it.
The last part of the last season was her other spin-off, like her and the princess when they like created their own little thief guild thing.
I just want to see Lord Zell. That's what I want to see.
Yeah,
Well, he needs to hatch.
into what I imagine will be a tadpole.
Yes.
Those books are done, so like presumably we will
Get a finished
ultimately get
wrap
the
on that.
rest of it. Yeah, which I'm excited for.
So all in all, do we think the average anime watcher gives shoujo a chance? Enough of a chance?
No.
No, do I think they should? Yes.
But I would say that's true of anything that isn't like typical shonen too. Like I said, Monogatari.
Yeah.
Well, Monogatari's hard for just random people to watch. But like March Comes in Like a Lion definitely didn't get enough attention.
I would say if you're a casual anime
Yeah.
watcher, I think you can give shoujo a chance.
Yeah, I more just meant there's other categories that also don't get enough of a shot.
But I think like
But
those
yes.
categories are like if you're into
Like
it.
can't
Yeah.
jump into it type
Yeah.
of thing.
Like
Yeah.
March Comes in Like a Lion is like a character study, you know.
Yeah.
Like you gotta want to watch that. Shoujo
Yeah.
now, or I should say romance more now.
You can
I'd say
be a
it's easier to get
casual
it.
enjoyer.
Like Dangers in My Heart has gotten a lot of attention in like, and I guess technically you could argue it's more for a male audience because the main boy does get more POV, but it's straight up a romance series.
Yeah.
And a lot of boys really enjoy it.
So when I write Roller Derby Boys Dancing to Your Heart, which is the name of my manga,
You better trademark that.
it is trademarked. It's patented. Should it be marketed towards girls or boys?
Girls.
Girls.
It's about a roller derby group of like 8 boys who are like all kind of maybe into each
But
other.
there are also 8 girls.
There are 8 girls, but they show up after and like they're just there to like be the other
And
side of it.
they're
but
on roller derby.
Yeah.
What do you think would be more lucrative?
Girls.
Girls.
Absolutely girls.
Girls.
Yeah, think of all the otome game merch.
Oh yeah, otome games are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I feel like that's mostly girls.
And I feel like a lot of otome games have been made into anime because of that reason.
Which like I actually think about cons too. You go to the artist alley, and it's mostly stuff that's targeted towards
Girls.
Yeah,
females.
like
Yes,
Love
the
in
same-
Deep Space right now is like
Towards girls.
crazy.
I don't even know what that
Yeah.
is.
Well, what,
It's
yeah,
a
what is
mobile game, and you can. There's like 4 male love interests.
Well, I mean, all the villainess anime.
One's a
are
vampire, so obviously I
otome
know about
games.
it.
And that's a whole genre that's getting adapted now. It's just lots of anime about girls being
Yep.
reincarnated in an otome game as the villainess.
brother's conflict was
Is that
an
an
otome game?
isekai?
It is. It's an isekai.
Yeah,
It is
Or
an isekai.
reincarnation.
It's an isekai typically, and it's the added element of its romance, but also it's like, oh, because they're always as the villainess, so then some
Yeah.
other girl gets reincarnated as like the pretty perfect princess, and it's
But
like
she's the villain.
no, the villainess is usually like tearing her down in some way. So there's almost like an element of like getting one over on the pretty girl who's like kind of a bitch
Like
kind
the
of thing.
you know
Yeah.
The
how
bitch-
the childhood friend always loses.
Wait, is isekai reincarnation or is isekai
No, they're
fantasy?
technically two different things. Isekai is reincarnated in another world.
Isekai is reincarnated in another world.
So if you were
but
to
it
be-
doesn't
if you
necessarily
were
have
to
to be a
be-
fantasy world.
It doesn't have to
No.
be. No, it could
It
be
could
any,
just be
it could be
another
any kind of
one.
world.
Okay, got it.
So there's some that make fun of like somebody dies in a fantasy world and then gets isekai'd into a different fantasy world. There's some where like they get isekai'd twice to be like, oh, I isekai'd into a new world. I saved the kingdom. I lived to a ripe old age of 80. I got married. I had kids. I died. And fuck, I got isekai'd again
Now
into
I'm
a
a
different
baby again.
one. But reincarnation is a different category of like you come back in your own life or your own world at least.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And you get to like
That's
relive.
really popular in Korean manhwa.
Manhwa
Yeah.
and anime.
Oh yes.
I stand by that. I stand by all my opinions. Cancel me.
What is your opinion? Anima as a word?
Yes.
Yeah, he's like that's the anime adaptation.
I'm taking some hard stances on a made-up phrase.
Hot take: anime is real.
But okay, so I'll round out the shoujo discussion with the merch.
Okay. Yes.
So we are anime collectors, not sponsored. This is just a plug. Has
We're
always
sponsored by merch in
No.
general.
We Are Animal Collectors is an amazing figure company, and
Oh,
they've
okay.
done a lot of like in the past year, a lot of Twitter polls
Okay.
of people who like you submit what you want statues of, and they've been getting this huge shoujo resurgence. So they have a Tomoe figure that came out. They have they are presumably getting a fruits basket line. So
Also, like old school.
I ordered
stuff.
the Toru Nana. Their figure
Dope.
was and it sold out, and then they're bringing it back.
Nice.
So, I mean, merch-wise, I'm like excited that there's gonna be some like shoujo stuff out there.
There's just
Not
so
ju-
much money in anime merch
Yeah.
that like they're leaving money on the table.
I wonder if all this resurgence is because like it was underserved in the beginning.
Oh,
and-
absolutely. Like,
Yeah, and now like everybody's an adult or a young adult, and they have the money.
The
and
money,
income
the
to be able to buy this
nostalgia.
stuff. Yeah.
People are spending stupid amounts of money on like Pokemon merch and toys from when they're kids, and it's like, hey, this never got merch. Let's
Yeah,
just make
this
it
is our
now.
time.
Yeah, and
This is our time.
these people are going to want to buy it because nothing exists.
That's possibly why it makes sense that artist alleys are mostly.
yeah, I was just
shoujo
gonna
stuff
say,
as
I
well.
feel like,
Yeah.
like I don't know the percent. I'll just throw a percentage out there. Like probably 60 to 70% is all like shoujo
Yeah.
related or romance related art in general because
Yeah.
it's just so underserved figure wise. Like,
Yeah, you're not
licensed wise.
getting it at the Crunchyroll booth.
You're
You
not
have to
getting
get
it-
it from an artist.
yeah, the freebies you're getting at Crunchyroll booth are like, you know, My Hero, Blue Lock. Like, I love these
JJK,
series, but like, it's you
You're
have to go to
spoiled-
like Kodansha
You're
or
spoiled
Ise.
for choice for those, where like if you can get over the mentality of like, oh, I gotta buy it now. It's like there's 80 Gojo figures. I can just go online and figure out what the best one is and find it because I've got choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, versus like, oh, this is like this okay sticker
Yeah.
of Yuri from Yuri on Ice. I guess I'll buy it because it's the only thing
And
here.
and even then, Yuri on Ice got ridiculously popular. So even that's like
well,
one of the ones that
sore
eked
subject.
its way out.
There's still not any Kristoff merch that I've been able to find, so
There's JJ.
not big enough.
Yeah.
So, Mappa, if you're watching, bring back Yuri on Ice Adolescence. We're all eagerly waiting for it.
Is that Jay? Is that Jay? That's Jay.
That's Jay.
Yeah, it always has to be an L.
Jay. Yeah.
What is interesting though, I say that as if we haven't been talking about interesting things. You were talking about the percentage of merch that's. You said shoujo. Is it shoujo or is it targeted towards girls? Because like.
Targeted towards girls.
Because I was going to say, because
we're using all of
I
this
was going to say there's the
interchangeably.
BL.
Yeah,
element.
there's BL,
Yes,
which is also
yes.
targeted.
Because what I was
towards
going to bring
girls.
up is I'm going to Comic-Con hopefully. Well, I just got my ticket, so hopefully. And supposedly, literally 90% of all, there's 30,000 booths of different vendors selling their stuff,
Yeah.
and supposedly 90% of it plus is BL. It's just BL. Like that's the target market, and obviously Japan is different, but like clearly the idea of drawing your own stories largely appeals towards women who want to draw the male characters together and not, like, hey, I'm going to do a Deku, Ochako, MHA. I mean, that exists, but like it's super tiny. and I don't know the answer for why that is, but it's very interesting.
I do. I want to address that we are using a lot of very heteronormative terms and points of view because we are all heteronormative. But like, that's our shorthand for like, this is what you're interested
Female
in, or this is what you're
identified,
not interested. Yeah. But
Or leaning.
Like there's a lot of nuance to it, and we understand that, especially in this community, there's a lot of
Right, like BL
complexities.
BL could be. I mean, there's boys who like BL, but I mean, even for girls, like it could be girls who are interested in women who, for whatever reason, like reading BL, or who are interested in men reading BL. Like it's just largely popular with the female audience.
Yeah, in general. I mean, I think from my point of view, it's like putting these traditionally masculine figures in like vulnerable situations is what's appealing, right? Like putting someone who, usually is running around with a sword in their hand, has like 14 women like hanging off of him. Like
And
putting
the personality of a rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I get strong.
Yeah, like, oh, if I eat this hair, I'll be a strong, muscly person. But like putting them in a vulnerable state of like romance and in touch with their feelings, right, is like very appealing to.
It's just so interesting because like you could apply that also to shonen, where people enjoy.
Well, I think that's why there's so much
reading-
BL.
No, meaning to like the people in vulnerable positions. Like people enjoy watching people overcome adversity and be in vulnerable
Or let me
positions,
say-
whether that is romance or whether that is fighting somebody who's much stronger than you, and you don't know if you have the
I'll
ability
say
to beat
vulnerable emotionally. How's that?
them. Vulnerable, yeah,
Because
but like
because Shonen Jump characters, sure, it's like, oh, I'm losing, I might die, but it's not the same thing as being emotionally vulnerable.
yeah, but I think like vulnerability at its core, it's a very like human thing to want to be exposed to that from a safe place.
Yeah,
from
but I
behind the
think-
screen.
I get what you're
think-
saying, but then it's like, well, what about literally exposed and literally vulnerable?
I
Because
think-
it's an adult.
That's porn.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. BL.
Well,
I want
that's
to see,
that's
see
what
my
a lot
boys
of
literally
BL is,
exposed,
but-
literally vulnerable.
BL, boys love, boys love.
Oh, Jesus. I was gonna say something now I forgot. So
Sorry.
keep going.
No. That I thought it was very interesting, the parallels between like romance and action that you spurred in my mind, which I'm sure has been written about before.
Actually, I'm curious. So the circles that you're finding yourself in on TikTok and social media, are they pretty? Are a lot of those people both into the Shojo Josei stuff and BL, or do you find people tend to skew one or the other?
From
Like
what
how much?
I
How much
hear-
do you see those? How much do you see those? How much do those Venn diagrams overlap?
No, I don't. I definitely don't think it's a perfect circle. I would say. I don't know. I think it's pretty equally overlap, like equally split. Like I wouldn't say it's any one
Like
type or
50%.
Yeah, like I don't know. You have from what I am exposed to on TikTok and what I kind of follow on Twitter, it's like it is a natural progression, right? To like start off in the romance genre and then like, you're obviously not gonna, or maybe you will, but hopefully not, jump into an Omegaverse manga. Like that's jumping off the deep end, right?
Yeah.
So like kind of, you naturally progress to the next level and like maybe someone will read something and it's like, you know what, that's not for me. Age gap, not for me.
Yep.
Omegaverse, not for me. BL, not for me. And I'll stay in my shoujo safe space or my romance safe space. So like, I think it's just like a matter of preference.
I think it's also cooler how much open that community is to the other. Whereas in shonen, they're like, oh, I don't want to watch shoujo. I don't want to care about boys love. But like in that community, like if you're in, you're like, I can see why people are into that. It's not for me.
Yeah.
But I can see why people are into that.
think
There's much more accepting.
It's like a little, I'll say a little safer of a space. Again, I don't want
Yeah.
to generalize,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, you're not judged, I think, as heavily as like, oh, you read that? Like,
Yeah.
you're weird, you know?
Yeah, because everyone's weird.
Yeah.
Everyone who watches this is weird.
You mean this podcast?
Yes. Everyone who watches and everybody who's in it is very weird.
Yeah.
For different reasons. I wanted to tie into a conversation that we had in the last episode, just because it's a good example, which is My Hero Academia and like what happened with the Deku Bakugo obsession, which is obviously not all fans, but a vocal element of the fan base. Do you see that in other fandoms as well? Like this one wasn't BL, but like when Naruto ended, and he ends up with Hinata. Spoiler, that was 15 years ago. The fan base who thought he was going to end up with Sakura, the pink-haired girl, despite her literally being obsessed with Sasuke the entire series, had a meltdown on 4chan. It was hilarious to observe live. Like, the rest of the sane fan base was like, this is insane. People are talking about, like, ending themselves and, like, they've lost faith in humanity. I mean, I don't think they were really doing it, but, like, they were expressing their emotions horribly. Like, the author got death threats. Yeah. It's like, what are you doing? And I don't think... I mean, obviously some of those folks were boys, but I don't think there's as much of a vocal, and I'm not saying it's all toxic, I'm just bringing those up as examples. I don't think the male audience cares as much about that element of series ending with, like, romance. Some people do, but, like, I feel like the passion for it is more in female audiences. As a not representative of all of them, but, like, the group that gets passionate about this tends to be more female than male.
That's interesting because I feel like my initial knee-jerk reaction when you said that,
by all means, this is one perspective,
was quintessential quintuplets. I feel like was like the only other, like, series that, like, jumps out at me. Like, everyone hated the ending.
Correct.
Like, who he ended up with.
Could I then add a caveat to that, which is quintessential quintuplets was intentionally designed where, like, he could end up with anybody. Mm-hmm. I would argue MHA was kind of obvious what was going to happen. Naruto was kind of obvious what was going to happen. This is more maybe about the idea of folks who are into the not obvious ship and get invested in the obvious. They're like side ships, which is okay. Like, again, I'm super into fanfic. Like, that's what it's there for. And fan art, like, you know, explore that. But the people who get too toxically into whatever their ship is, I can't prove this with data. I could be wrong. It just feels like the louder groups tend to be like, oh, I want these two boys together. I want these two boys together.
The louder group, you hear the loudest because it's like,
because it's loud.
Yeah. Or it's like the average person
doesn't care.
Doesn't have.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a lot of people. I'm
trying to really think about, like, if there's any other one, like.
I think because it's so controversial that people interact with it. And they're like, why would you say that?
When Naruto ended, like, aside from the Naruto one, there were the people who wanted Naruto and Sasuke together.
Okay, yeah.
They were also complaining.
That was my knee-jerk reaction was, like, if Naruto was released today, would we have had the Bakudeku situation with Naruto Sasuke?
That fan base exists. Again, I can't say that it's a huge group of people, but just, like, the folks who choose to be vocal about this, in what I'm perceiving of, like, sections of social media, seems to be more so folks interested in, like, BL relationships and not heteronormative male-female relationships where it seems like, okay, it could be boys, but, like, it seems like it's girls into
I think it's a
male relationships.
It's a loud vocal minority because...
And actually, as I'm saying that, to be fair, that like, the Bakugo Deku, like, that could be gay men too. Like, I don't know.
I think it's just such a controversial opinion that people naturally want to interact with it online, and, like, it's
kind of fun.
And the way that social media works is just
it's
built up.
Limit,
it's just continuously pushed. Oh, people are interacting with this. Let's continue showing it in other people's feeds.
I think it's, like, the perfect storm of, like, the internet egging people on, right? Yeah. And it's like, how much more can we push it, right? Of, like, oh, well, I'm getting a lot of reactions by having this very, like, polarizing view. Let me like continue to lean into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a part of it.
I could give you one more example, actually, that just happened. Wait, did you watch Arcane?
No. Okay. Not season 2.
Okay.
I watched season 1.
Okay.
You can spoil it. Spoilers.
So there are a couple hinted relationships in this. Like, I think in season 1, Mel and Jace are together.
I forget all the names.
Caitlin and V, the sheriff and the red-haired girl, the muscular red-haired girl.
Yes.
Very obviously, like, they're heading towards a relationship, which is, like, handled and exists in the show and in season 2 as well. Jinx has one with, like, a boy potentially. It doesn't really get explored, but, like, it exists. And then there's Jace and Vander. Jace, the guy with the hammer, and Vander's, like, the scientist dude with the limp.
Okay.
They have come out and, I believe, said, like, Vander's asexual. Like, he's just a science guy. He has friends, but, like, he and Jace are friends, and they, like, push each other scientifically, and that's what it is. There are a number of people who are upset with the ending of Arcane that those two, spoiler alert, don't get together, which, like, is not part of Vander's character. He's, like, there to represent an asexual person, and despite the fact that Caitlin and Vi are a gay, like, lesbian relationship that's very well explored in the show, they're like, oh, the show is, like, refuse to like allow Vander and Chase to be together and have a gay meanwhile they're like, we wanted to have he's clearly an asexual character, and like we wanted to make sure we portrayed him well. And that's a vocal element of like the Arcane community, right?
I also
not
think,
a big group. I don't know how big they are.
I haven't watched season 2.
Yeah.
But unlike the Baku Deku, based on what you've told me, I don't think it advances the story or makes the characters more interesting or more developed than they currently are.
And there's non-heterosexual relationships
representation
properly represented in the show.
Whereas the Baku Deku thing, like, even though people aren't happy about that not happening, I could see if it did happen, like, it does make sense, and it could push the story forward in a different way.
How
you
you
can
get
see
there.
Easter eggs.
You could like it. There's a logical sense to it, and like it makes things sort of interesting. So like I'm not as mad about that as I would be having not watched it.
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
they're not even main characters. Who gives a shit?
You could find a way maybe to to see things heading that direction, but like it didn't. And like, hey, cool, there's an asexual character. Like, why can't that be okay?
I can't wait to see like some tweet that's like, how come Goofy and Donald aren't married in Kingdom Hearts?
King Mickey.
I mean, Donald hasn't seen his wife in years. As far as I'm concerned, those two are like sharing a sleeping bag on this adventure.
Yeah, they're coworkers. They're best friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're sharing goof juice.
Gross. Go. So what's the most out of pocket ship that you've seen on Twitter? I'm not on Twitter at all.
I mean, they literally all exist.
But what's
I mean,
the
you
one
can
that
do
you've seen
any-
and what's the one you've seen and you've just been like, no, that's enough Twitter for today.
Anything with siblings. Oh, the Destiel, the boys from Supernatural. They're literally brothers.
Ooh.
Almost all, and I'm not in that community, but like it's a very large
Sora?
fanfic. It's a pretty big community in fanfic. Pretty much all fanfic for that series is those two brothers, and like trying to come. I've never ventured into it. I presume they at least try to come up with some way of like maybe they're not entirely related, but like
they'll explain it.
Anything with siblings.
How about you?
Most outlandish.
Yeah, outlandish or just like why? Why would you put those two together?
I've seen a weird one with like Toru and Kisa, and I was like, that's weird.
Which one's Kisa?
The little tiger girl.
Oh.
The little tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that gets bullied by the boy.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Because every ship exists.
There's
ship
something for
exists.
everybody, I guess.
There is no tag you can't find on AO3.
Hashtag Cementoss and Gojo. That's my shit.
I mean, at the end of the day, the shipping stuff.
You can't type Rule 34.
No. I'm checking to see if it exists on AO3.
What's AO3?
Archive of Our Own. It's the biggest fanfiction website. It used to be fanfiction.net, but it's poorly run and they don't update it. So they created Archive of Our Own, which is better designed and literally has a board that like you can vote people onto. It's a really good website. So pretty much all fanfiction.
That's why it's
is there.
Of Our Own.
Archive of Our Own. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue what you were gonna say. I just want to see if I type in if I can find it.
The shipping stuff, like, it doesn't. I'm like, anime and manga and this whole universe is supposed to make you happy, right?
Yeah.
So like, if making these fun little ships, and it's like like a cootie catcher, or like when we used to play MASH in school, like who you're gonna marry, right? Like, to me, it's the same thing.
You don't yuck someone's yum.
Yeah, but like, let's keep it fun. There's no reason to exactly like yuck someone's yum. Like if they're really into something and they enjoy it, and they're not like pushing it or being problematic with someone else, like you do you. But at the same time, don't like then go giving the mangaka of My Hero Academia a death threat if like your two people didn't end up together. Like, it's not that serious.
Yeah, it's not.
They're all 2D characters written down and from someone's imagination. Be thankful that this person shared their imagination with you and made you happy.
Yeah. And this is where fan creations come in. Like, I've read series where I didn't love the ending. Harry Potter, great example. Like, that's what got me into fan fiction. Was
you didn't
like
like the end of it? Okay, we'll come back to that.
It was okay, but like, I felt like the world was poorly explored. She's not a great writer. Like, it was an interesting setup, but like, more could be done. And like, that community was like, hey, let's explore more of like, how the Muggle world would probably interact with the magical world, because it's insane that no Muggle ever brings anything over. Or like, hey, these characters are all one-dimensional, and like the one Irish dude is just an Irish caricature, and like the Asian girl
Cho Chang, baby.
has a made-up name. Yeah. But like that's what fandom is for. Fan art, fan fiction, those sorts of things. Is like, hey, you can play in that world and try to expand it more in a way that you want to. So like, if I read a series and it doesn't end the way I want it to, or I want more, like Arcane. I've been reading Arcane fanfic for 2 weeks because I'm like, I need more of this world. It should have been a season and a half. It was great, but like it needed more time.
Yeah, I'm not done with it yet.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what it's there for. I don't need to go tweet anger at the Arcane creators because they had a budget limit and they couldn't do everything.
I
they
mean,
wanted.
that's a really amazing point because that's probably the reason why so much fanfic is romance driven because it's like it's so
one season, they don't get any more.
That and it's like we've hopefully all fallen in love or like had that ideal daydream of a relationship, so it's like easy, quote unquote, to write a fanfic versus like let me create Nen in my head.
Let me
like,
build on the Nen system.
Yeah. Versus like, oh, like I want to see these two characters get together. It would have been nice. This is how I would have imagined. Like it's very relatable and able to do that in a fanfic space.
Fanfic is much easier to write than a whole new D&D campaign.
Precisely. So like, you know.
I'm sorry. I'm caught up on the Harry Potter thing. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. But like broad. I also haven't read them all or watched them all. But broad strokes, Harry killing Voldemort at the end, like that. You don't agree with, or like that's fine.
It was okay. I mean,
should Voldemort have won?
No. It was fine. The addition in the 7th book of certain mystical elements that were like
they have to kill the snake.
No, there were like these 3 items that were basically just like pretty much introduced in
Didn't
the last
they like
book.
they cut his soul up into
that part they added.
The Horcruxes
that's different.
have been
That came up in like book 6.
Oh, so there's something different than Horcruxes?
Yeah, there's another thing.
Was that in the movie?
Yeah. I mean, it's called the Deathly Hallows. It's the Deathly Hallows.
It's that
which were made
type.
up in the 7th one, which was like an interesting story, but like it was added later. There's a number of things like that. Easy example: Quidditch. She hates sports. Like she hates sports, so she just made it ridiculous on purpose, and then intentionally had things happen in each book where like Quidditch wouldn't have to happen because she hated writing it, and when she wrote it, it sounded stupid.
I remember we talked about this. I don't know if we talked about this in a podcast or we just talked about this.
Yeah, like you have all these people with roles, and they score for 10 points, and one thing is worth 150, and literally every game is just whoever catches that wins. Nobody else matters.
Yeah,
it's like just poor thought. Like an editor could have fixed that.
It's like basketball. You can score as many points as you want, but if you can kill the coach, you win the game.
No, it's like, but there's this one ball, and if you dunk it, it's 400 points, and the game ends. The game doesn't end until this.
We went on a tangent.
Yes. So anyway, by the way, 0 came up of just stories with Cementoss and Gojo in it.
Okay.
It's not tagged.
In the comments.
Write your best Cement.
Not in the comments. Here's my mailing address.
No.
Mail me your Gojo Cementoss fanfic and photos.
Or drop your either what is the weirdest pairing you've actually seen, or speculate what's a weird one that you can come up with, and then try searching out on AO3 and let us know if there were any results. Because that was an interesting combination. It seemed like a viable My Hero and JJK, those crossovers exist.
Yeah,
like
and
lots
Gojo's
of people
pretty
write
popular.
those crossover stories. I guess Cementoss was too narrow.
Cementoss is my queen. Send me your deviant art of Cementoss.
Deviant art?
Right.
Oh god. Hold on, I just have to know. So Gojo and Deku. It's an obvious main characters. I'm not doing pairings. Oh my god, his name isn't Deku. It's
Midoriya.
Midoriya, thank you. Because it wasn't coming up with Deku. Does Midoriya exist? Midoriya, Izuku. Let's see how many results. No pairings, just stories with them. Surprisingly, not that many. What? No, 207. 207 stories, they have both of them. That's just crossovers. That's not even potentially relationships.
What else did you want to talk about?
Yeah. Dude, it's a fun game sometimes to just pick 2 names and type it into AO3 and see how many stories come up.
Mary-Kate and
This one has like 9 series in it. Dandadan, Tokyo Ghoul, Kaicho wa Meiro-sama.
They definitely just rewrote Kingdom Hearts.
Honestly, yeah.
They just threw the kitchen
every
sink.
crossover fanfic is just Kingdom Hearts, the next game.
Yes. Kingdom Hearts 486 over 6 divided by 2 Rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
Starring Gojo.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, you were talking about Twisted Wonderland.
Yeah.
Gojo.
That's getting an anime.
Yeah, Jack Skellington.
Twisted Wonderland is getting an anime. That got announced 2
It was
weeks
a
ago.
game. It's a game.
It's a game, but
Yeah.
now it's getting an anime.
What type of game is it?
It's just like a mobile. Isn't it a
Disney?
mobile?
It's not an.
game?
I don't know
You
what
were
it
saying
is.
otome game.
No, otome game is where there's like a female character and then like a bunch of male
And like you
love
like
interests.
you like play like you select. It's like,
Like
Goosebumps. Like you select.
you
the
select different
actions.
and
Yeah, it's like
things
a visual.
you're gonna say.
It's a type
Yeah.
of visual
Got it,
novel
got it.
specifically targeted towards a girl audience largely,
Got
where
it.
you have multiple males.
Sorry, I'm
interests.
bringing this off the rails. What else did you want
Yeah.
to talk about?
I mean, no.
Now we're gonna rate our favorite otome
Oh
games.
my god, no.
Have
I'm
you played any?
I'm like dangerously very close to wanting to get into them, and I feel like that's quite a rabbit hole.
Wait,
so.
why don't you want to? Do you have to pay
I just
for
don't
them?
know where. Yeah, it's like on Switch.
No, but like, do you,
You
like,
can get them on Steam and stuff.
But there's not like microtransactions. It's not like a.
No. It's you pay for the game and it's a visual novel, so you
Yeah,
like
you
play
just play.
through and it's pictures, but it's mostly text based, and then the pictures might change to show who you're talking to or where you are, but like it's mostly
Or like what
text-based.
action
like the
you're
lawyer
doing.
game.
I'm sorry.
I don't know
The
what that
lawyer
is.
game. Ace something.
Oh, Ace
Phoenix-
Attorney.
Ace Attorney, yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
That's an otome
It's-
game.
No, but it's more like a visual. It's more of a visual novel, kind of. I mean, you're getting close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Trivial Pursuit.
Let's make him
Oh
play
my
an
God.
otome game.
I'll
Yeah.
play an otome game.
We'll live stream it, and then Carl, people can vote on how
Yeah.
you should select.
My Twitch tag is Karlo Tome.
We should have you play the pigeon
Oh
one.
my god.
There's a pigeon one.
All right.
You know that one, right?
All right, we'll have a whole other special on otome games.
Otome game special 2025.
All right, so maybe
Which pigeon will Carlo choose?
to round out this discussion, so like we've talked about how we've started watching more romance. If you had to give like the starter pack, your starter pack, the top like 3 to watch.
Starter pack.
Yeah.
Kaguya-sama.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Can we crowdsource this? Me and you, Steve.
Dangers in My Heart.
Dangers in my heart. Let's make it 5.
Okay, 5.
Let's make it 5.
Oh,
between us two.
Yeah.
Your Name. Your Name's a romance.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it could
are we
be-
counting movies too?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can count.
Okay. Then Your Name definitely. Howl's Moving Castle.
I thought you didn't like Howl's Moving Castle.
I didn't, but I think it's like necessary.
It's an
viewing.
enjoyable. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else is romance. It's not my favorite movie of his, but
No.
that one's a romance.
Yeah. No, definitely. If I had to pick a movie, it would be Your Name.
Yeah.
So Your Name.
Dangers in My
Heart.
Kaguya-sama.
Kaguya-sama.
I think if you're looking to start something that's brand new, Blue Box. Blue Box is pretty good.
I'm trying to look at your.
I don't know if I'd say. I mean, Dress Up Darling is
Dress
a
Up
romance, but
Darling.
like it's not. It hasn't progressed far enough.
Horimiya. I like Horimiya.
It kind of
Have you
drops off.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I
the
like the
beginning of
beginning.
Horimiya, which is about their relationship, and then the second half where it's all the side stories. I don't care as much, but Horimiya is a great romance.
Oh, I like Wotakoi.
Wotakoi is great, and it's an adult one.
Yeah.
I like
Wotakoi's
Wotakoi.
good.
Wotakoi. I
Yeah.
stand Wotakoi.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's one that's coming out. What's it called? It's
Tokyo
about,
Ghoul.
It's about
Re.
it's about romance in the workplace. It's a guy in the accounting department and a girl in the planning department. It's
I
coming
feel
out
like
next
you
year.
just
I'm
named
blanking.
it. A guy in the accounting department.
It's a light novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Can You Keep a Secret, I think is the English name, even though it's not the Japanese name, but it's about the two of them trying to hide the fact that they're in a relationship. It's coming out next year. The manga's great, and it progresses pretty quick, so that's a good one.
I would put my 5th as Dandadan. If you're trying to get into it. and,
Dandadan is a great bridge into romance.
Yeah, it's a great. I would still call it a shonen, but it's like a good.
Yeah.
Like
Kaguya-sama also, I think, ran
Yeah.
it was targeted more towards women, but I think it ran in.
It's the opposite side of the coin of Dandadan.
Yeah.
Like it's
you
a
could
little
start on
further on the
Dandadan,
side, yeah.
then you get into Kaguya, and then all their others.
Yes, or if you just want to like get destroyed in the beginning, just watch Your Name.
Yeah.
Your Name is an easy entry if you haven't seen
but
it.
I say destroyed like
Emotionally.
You'll be crying.
Yeah.
It's
a good
I
story.
cried at that movie. I don't cry at a lot of movies. I cried at that movie.
Yeah. Emily,
I'm
what's
not
yours?
ashamed.
What's your starter kit?
Yeah, that's what I'm like looking.
High
out
school
of my
DxD,
array.
prison school.
Oh my god. No. Absolutely not.
8 spicy boys in maid outfits, all lusting after one woman. Season 2.
Oh wait, I thought you were talking about your shirt or your
Baby
no,
metal.
your cardigan. 8 lusty boys.
Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
Orano's Club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. So if I was to, I mean, I'm obviously gonna put Fruits Basket in there.
Yeah.
Then a Kami-sama Kiss. I think Orange is a good.
Oh, Orange is great.
Is a good one.
Yeah.
What's Orange?
It's down there.
Orange is a group of high schoolers who find a box from the future. No, wait.
From
the
they write a
past.
letter to their past selves.
It's a time capsule, and then they find it later.
That'll
Yeah.
destroy me.
Yeah.
I'll read that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Orange is a good one. I would say either Snow White with the red hair or Yona of the Dawn. I lean more towards Yona of the Dawn personally, but I think those are kind of like one and the
Those
same.
two are both on my read list.
And then Yamada-kun level 999.
Yes.
Oh, Yamada-kun. Yeah, Yamada-kun.
So those would be-
How could I forget Yamada-kun?
I would also throw out Sign of Affection.
Yes, Sign of Affection is really
Spectacular.
good too.
Yeah, so there's plenty. There's a lot, and a lot of what we just mentioned is recent too, just further evidence of.
Fragrant
How we're doing.
Flower is gonna come out with an anime, and that's supposed to be really. I'm reading the manga.
Have you read it?
Yeah, it's up to. I mean, I've only read up to. We only have up to volume 4. Why does it change?
It's okay.
I don't know.
I
I'm enjoying up to volume 4.
I still enjoy it, but it's in the fan base referred to as Apology the manga.
Oh goodness.
They're just too in touch with their emotions and always apologizing for potentially hurting each other. Like in a like, okay, you're being too sensitive, but it's cute.
What is
The art is great. The romance is good. The main girl's a cinnamon roll. It's spectacular.
I was gonna say, what is your
Fragrant Flower Blooms with You. That's the
Yes.
title.
what is your sweat recommendation? Like
Domestic girlfriend.
I know. Now I'm watching this and I'm sweating. But like, I'm so into shoujo. I'm so into romance. Like if you're into it, like this is like the nerdy one that you really like.
nerdy
The one that's like, if you're so into it, you gotta read this one.
I don't know. That's tough.
Like a deep cut.
I don't
A
know.
deep
I
cut
don't know if
recommendation.
I don't know if I have deep cuts as much as I like.
Maybe it's just
Watch
for
it.
Emily.
I don't know if I have a good deep. If I know anything that would qualify as a deep cut. That's an interesting question. I
mean,
like how you're like
Yeah.
Well,
heavily studying like what could I name.
I have to look at all like my shoujo shelves.
Yeah, I
Is
would.
Wotakoi a deep cut?
I would need to check my.
I mean, I think
list.
Wotakoi is. I think it's only available on Amazon Prime
a
in
deeper
sub.
cut.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
a deeper cut.
Deeper cut.
Yeah, now you've got me really wondering what my deep cut would be.
That's what you comment. Comment your deep cut.
Yeah, make it.
Romance
Leave
shoujo.
a romance recommendation, not just for us, but for other people. in
Yeah,
the
something we
comments.
haven't named yet. What should we be reading?
Yeah,
Or
watching.
Yeah, or is coming out next year and you're looking forward to because there's probably some of that. Jeez,
All right.
I'm gonna struggle with that one.
I know. I'll have to think.
Yeah. All right. Well.
I feel like everything I read is a deep cut.
When it comes to a point when you've like read most of everything, that whatever you're going to read is either going to be new or a deep cut.
yeah, or
Yeah.
it's not a deep cut to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on one sec. I'm just gonna cut this out if this doesn't pan out. I'm just checking my romance list really quick. Am I? Or is this gonna not let me? Romance. Show me. No, it's not.
You're
near
just gonna
this.
say love after world domination.
That's a great
Oh
one.
yes, I love After World Domination.
That is a
That's-
great one.
Where is she?
Destiny? She's
where's
queen of the
Destiny?
Zoids, so where is she?
Where did I put her? There she is. There's Destiny.
Oh, you know what? This isn't a deep cut. Well, you'll have an opportunity to see it in theaters again next week. A Silent Voice.
Mm.
Oh, Silent Voice.
Silent Voice. That's my
Silent
deep
Voice is
cut.
good.
It's not that deep of a cut, but like deserves the call out.
Silent Voice is good, and sort of relates to Fruits Basket. Talking about things falling out of windows.
Oh.
Oh, all right. That's a deep cut.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah.
Not so much of a deep cut. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Perfectly Mid, and we'll be putting out another episode in 2 weeks from the airing of this one, and 2 weeks after that, and 2 weeks after that. So keep an eye out. And of course, we'll be putting out shorts.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye. Boop. Keep holding it. Keep holding it.